Vinny, you're going to give yourself a third-degree corduroy burn.
What if the laugh that made an entire generation smile was actually the sound of a child watching his father die? Behind the comedy of Welcome Back, Kotter hides a devastating price tag. 2 stars dead 7 months apart, both haunted by the roles they couldn't escape. By the end of this video, nothing about this show will look the same. His mother begged him not to do it. She was an acting teacher. She knew the industry's cruelest trick, the typecast, and she could see it coming from miles away. "Play a dumb Brooklyn kid," she warned her youngest son, "and that's all you'll ever be." John Travolta ignored her completely. Born in Englewood, New Jersey in 1954, the baby of 6 children, every single one of them an actor, Travolta dropped out of high school at 16 and chased something most teenagers only dream about. By 21, he was Vinnie Barbarino. Beautiful, magnetic, catastrophically dim, the boy every guy envied and every girl adored. The moment he walked onto that studio set, the live audience didn't just clap, they screamed. And his mother's worst fear became his greatest triumph. While Kotter was still airing, Travolta filmed Carrie, Saturday Night Fever, and Grease in rapid succession. He outgrew the show so completely that by season 4, he had been reduced to a special guest, 10 episodes, $2,000 each, a rounding error compared to what Hollywood was already paying him. He stayed anyway, partly because he'd watched Farrah Fawcett vanish from Charlie's Angels early and quietly taken notes. But the fame came with a devastating price. In 1977, while Kotter was still running, his girlfriend Diana Hyland died of breast cancer in his arms. He was 23 years old. Then, in 2009, his 16-year-old son, Jet, died from a seizure during a family vacation in the Bahamas. A tragedy followed almost immediately by an extortion plot that forced Travolta to publicly confirm his son had been autistic. And in 2020, his wife, Kelly Preston, beloved by millions, died at just 57, after fighting breast cancer privately for 2 years. 3 devastating losses, 1 lifetime. After a brutal slump through the 80s, Quentin Tarantino pulled him back from the edge with Pulp Fiction in 1994, an Oscar nomination, a resurrection, and a career second act that most actors never get. Today, in April 2026, John Travolta is 72 years old, a certified pilot licensed to fly Boeing 707 and 747 aircraft, and worth an estimated $250 million. His mother told him that dumb Brooklyn kid would destroy him. Instead, that dumb Brooklyn kid made him immortal. The grief, though, that was the real cost of the ticket. Now here's someone who did something almost nobody in Hollywood ever does. He walked away. Gabe Kaplan was born in Brooklyn in 1945, and his first real dream had nothing to do with television. He wanted to play Major League Baseball. The game disagreed, so he took a job as a bellman at a New Jersey resort hotel, watched comedians work the lounge every night, and realized, with the quiet clarity of someone who had been underestimated his whole life, exactly what he was built for. By 30, he had turned his Brooklyn classroom memories into a stand-up routine, sharp enough to land him 5 appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Producers came calling. Welcome Back Kotter was born, but the set was a war zone nobody in the audience could see. Executive producer James Buchanan played Kaplan and co-star Marcia Strassman against each other for years, telling each of them the other wanted them fired, manufacturing a feud from pure fiction. When Kaplan finally uncovered the manipulation while guest hosting The Tonight Show, he invited Strassman on and told the whole story on live television. By the final season, he had broken his contract and appeared in just 8 of 23 episodes. And then he simply left. No desperate comeback, no humiliating guest spots. Gabe Kaplan became a professional poker player, and not a casual one. His live tournament winnings surpassed $1.99 million. He won the main event at Amarillo Slim's Super Bowl of Poker. He hosted high-stakes poker on television. He built quiet, lasting wealth through smart investments and never once looked back at Hollywood with longing. In April 2026, Gabe Kaplan is 80 years old, worth an estimated $50 million, and almost certainly the only sitcom creator in history who left the industry to become one of the best card players on the planet. The man who played a teacher turned out to be the smartest person in every room he ever entered. He just stopped letting Hollywood deal the cards. He thought he was going to be Barbarino. Robert Hegyes stepped into an elevator with producer Alan Sachs and John Travolta, and only then, in that tiny metal box between floors, did it click. Travolta was already cast as Barbarino. Hegyes was someone else entirely. That someone else turned out to be one of the most quietly revolutionary characters on 1970s American television. Juan Luis Pedro Filippo de Vos, Epstein, half Jewish, half Puerto Rican, normalized mixed ethnic identity on a major network sitcom years before the culture had even developed a language for it. Hegyes modeled him on Chico Marx, the hustler, the wheeler dealer, the lovable schemer. And he was so good at it that at just 25, the network made him one of the show's directors. After Kotter, he played Detective Manny Esposito on Cagney and Lacey. He taught screenwriting at Rowan University. In early January 2012, he gave his final public performance, playing Chico Marx in a staged radio play, still channeling the exact same energy that had built Epstein decades before. 3 weeks later, on January the 26th, 2012, Robert Hegyes died of a heart attack at his home in New Jersey. He was 60 years old. He walked into that elevator thinking he was one character. He became another, and that other character quietly changed American television forever. He just never got to see how much. This is the story that will change the way you hear his laugh. Ron Palillo was born in Connecticut in 1949. When he was 10 years old, his father was diagnosed with lung cancer. The grief of watching him die shattered something in the boy so deeply that he developed a stutter. His mother, desperate to help, enrolled him in local theater. It worked. He started his own summer theater at 14 and somehow made it profitable. He trained in Shakespeare at the University of Connecticut. This was a serious, disciplined, classically trained actor. And then he became Horshack. That laugh, that high-pitched, wheezing, gasping, unmistakable sound that erupted across living rooms every week and became one of the most recognized noises in television history, was not invented. It was remembered. Ron Palillo built it from the sound of his father's dying breath. Every time the studio audience roared, they were unknowingly echoing a boy sitting beside a deathbed. Palillo himself once said Horshack was actually the smartest kid in the class, just someone who buried his intelligence to survive socially. That tension between hidden depth and performed foolishness, that wasn't just the character's tragedy. It was Ron's too. The role consumed him. Through the 80s, he fell into depression, barely leaving his apartment, unable to find serious work, permanently exiled by one wheeze and one raised hand. In 2002, he appeared on Celebrity Boxing and was beaten by Dustin Diamond. One generation's lovable TV misfit destroyed on camera by the next generation's. It's the kind of moment that writes itself in cruelty. But he went back to what he loved: Shakespeare, musicals, a one-man off-Broadway show portraying Adolf Eichmann. He taught acting to high school students in Florida, and every single one of them adored him. He lived for 41 years with his partner, Joseph Graham. On August 14th, 2012, Joseph Graham found him at 4 a.m. Heart attack. Ron Palillo was 63 years old, 7 months after Robert Hegyes. Same cause, same decade of life, both still carrying the same characters on their backs. A Shakespearean actor turned a dying father's last sounds into America's favorite laugh, then spent the rest of his life trying to prove he was more than that laugh. He was. The world just wouldn't let him show it. Some actors disappear into their roles so completely that we forget there's a whole life behind the character. John Sylvester White was born in Philadelphia in 1919, and his life story is one of the most unexpected in this entire cast. His father was an attorney who became the first mayor of Kamar Manor, Maryland. He studied acting at the University of Maryland, worked in 1950s radio dramas, and then simply stopped. For 18 years, he walked away from the stage entirely and worked as a salesman. He was 55 years old when he became Vice Principal Michael Woodman, the man who had long ago surrendered all his idealism and was quietly waiting out the clock until retirement. John Travolta later called him a great actor who gave the show credibility it didn't always deserve. And here's the detail that connects him to an entirely different chapter of American pop culture. White was married to Joan Alexander, the voice of Lois Lane on the original 1940s Superman radio series. The man playing the bitter bureaucrat went home every night to the woman who'd saved Metropolis. After Kotter, he retired and moved to Hawaii. John Sylvester White died of pancreatic cancer on September 11th, 1988. He was 68 years old, the first main cast member to go, a man who played someone who had surrendered watching the Pacific Ocean from paradise in an ending more peaceful than the character he played ever found. She replaced Liza Minnelli on a stage at 15 years old. Let that sink in for a moment. Marcia Strassman was born in New York City in 1948. Her grandmother was a Ziegfeld girl. She was already a working professional with a MASH credit on her resume before Kotter ever called. 5 women auditioned for the role of Julie Kotter. One of them was Farrah Fawcett, who was deemed too glamorous to believably share a kitchen with Gabe Kaplan. When Strassman heard that, she reportedly laughed and said, "You believe me with Gabe Kaplan?" But the set, as we now know, was a manufactured battlefield. Producer James Buchanan spent years convincing both Strassman and Kaplan that the other wanted them gone. A lie told in both directions simultaneously. At one point, the Sweathog actors physically formed a wall between Kaplan and Strassman during a confrontation that Buchanan himself had engineered. She hated the experience, and she said so publicly, without apology. After Kotter, her best-known role came opposite Rick Moranis in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and its sequel. But the fight she fought hardest wasn't on any screen. In March 2007, doctors discovered advanced breast cancer that had already spread to her bones. They gave her 2.5 years. She lived for 7, writing a memoir, raising money for research, and showing up with more humor and defiance than the disease could match. Marcia Strassman died on October 24th, 2014 at 66 years old. Eric Idle and Cher were among those who mourned her publicly. Her sister called her the funniest, smartest person she had ever known. Farrah Fawcett was too beautiful for the role. Marcia Strassman was simply too formidable to be defined by it. She was tougher than every Sweathog combined, and she proved it every single day. Before Hollywood ever learned his name, he was delivering packages, arranging flowers, stocking shelves. Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs was born in New York City in 1953, the 5th of 9 children to parents of West Indian descent. He ground his way up from nothing, caught his break in the 1975 cult classic Cooley High, and at 22 walked onto the Kotter set as Freddie Boom Boom Washington, the coolest person in any room, the kid who could sell you something you didn't need and have you thanking him for it. But here's the fact that almost everyone has forgotten about this show. Of all the Sweathogs, not Travolta, not Kaplan, not Palillo, not Hegyes, The only cast member who appeared in every single one of 95 episodes was Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs. Not one absence. Boom Boom never missed a class. He and Travolta were inseparable during those years, daily, double dating, building a friendship that outlasted the show by decades. After Kotter, he played Noah in Roots, portrayed Joe Jackson in The Jacksons, An American Dream, and sang backup on a Rick James album. Eddie Murphy thought enough of him to name the housing project in the PJs in his honor, and in 2021, he earned an Emmy nomination, proof that the work never stopped even when the spotlight moved on. In a 2021 interview, he said something that quietly carries the weight of everything we've covered today. Kotter is something very special in my life. It's sentimental, because a lot of people are gone now. Bobby, Ron, Marcia, Johnny. It's just Gabe, John, and I now. In April 2026, Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs is 72 years old, still working, still present, still showing up. The only sweathog who never missed a single class is the one still here. Think about that. Then there's a name most Kotter fans have already forgotten. And that forgetting is itself the story. Stephen Shortridge was brought in during the fourth and final season as Beau Delabarre, a smooth-talking southerner from New Orleans, dispensing Bayou wisdom like a real man never steps on a pregnant alligator. Producers wanted someone deliberately different from Travolta. The audience wanted no such thing. The chemistry never sparked. After Kotter, Shortridge largely vanished from the entertainment industry entirely. He wasn't given a character. He was handed a casting decision dressed up as an opportunity. And in Hollywood, those two things look identical, right up until they don't. So here we are. Welcome back, Kotter. 51 years later. 4 of the 8 are gone. White taken by cancer in 1988. Hegyes by a heart attack in January 2012. Palillo, 7 months later, same cause, same heartbreak. Strassman by cancer in 2014. 2 heart attacks, 7 months apart, both men in their early 60s, both still wrestling with characters they could never fully leave behind. A show about going back and a cast that spent the rest of their lives trying to decide whether returning was salvation or a trap. Travolta carries his grief quietly and flies his own planes. Kaplan dealt his hand, walked away from the table, and won. Hilton-Jacobs never missed a day and is still standing. And somewhere in all of it, Ron Palillo took the worst sound of his childhood and gave the world a laugh it never forgot. That's the real legacy of Welcome Back Kotter. Not the theme song, not the catchphrases, the people, the price they paid, the ones still here. Now, I have to ask you, which of these stories hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this kind of deep dive storytelling is what you come here for, hit that subscribe button and join the RoleMorph family, because we do this every single week and we're just getting started. See you in the next one.